give me a thumbs up. Who is running or has run or has played around with Linux? Just give me some kind of idea. Okay. To go along with that, who is running Linux with ham radio apps? Anybody doing that? I don't see any hands. So this is going to be great, I think, I hope. Who is running, first of all, who has Raspberry Pis that you may or may not have them up and running at the moment? So let me see here. Keep the hands up for a second here. I'm not counting or writing anything down, so I'm just trying to see. Okay. Now that could be Raspberry Pis 2s, 3Bs, 3B pluses, Raspberry Pi 4s, zeros, all the different flavors. Who has done any programming with something like Pico Pis or MicroPython, that sort of thing? Anybody doing anything with any of that? Okay. I know. Yeah. I'm a shade tree guy, remember. So give you a little quick background here before I share up the screen. I started doing a little bit of this a long time ago before it was Linux. And, you know, I had to learn about paths and folders and all kinds of things like that with Intel development systems at the MS-DOS level, CP/M level, all that sort of thing. And then Novell a little bit, not much. And then I sort of started falling into the Linux side of the world. And you know what? I can't remember the exact year, but according to looking at the data for when Linux was born, if you will, or reborn and released, I think it was late 1989 or 89, 99, somewhere along in there. But my first endeavor with Linux was done with after it got released. And I know there's a lot of history here, okay? And I'm not going to read every word on every slide. There's a lot of history, and Linux, after it went through all the mishmash with all the lawsuits and the Linus Torvalds and all that, got it released. There are a lot of different flavors, as you're going to see. And Knoppix was my first one. I didn't have to, but I felt obligated. I was down in East Texas, and I bought in those days, a CD, and that CD had a bootable Knoppix on it. And then I had to decide how to install it and do all those kinds of things. So I experimented a lot. Matter of fact, I think over here in my piles of all of my discs, I probably still have that first original Knoppix CD. Of course, it evolved in something larger than a CD could handle. My next step was Puppy Linux, which was real small, real quick, that sort of thing. And then, of course, graduated into more higher level capacity things that involved DVDs. So I'm going to see if I can get the share going here, if I get the screen going right. And I move. This is, and if you got to go, you're not going to embarrass me. And you're always welcome to call me at any time. I don't profess to be the #1 expert, but you're going to see some pieces that relate to David in here and so forth. So here we go. Let's see what I've got going here. I don't think that's the right screen. Okay, can you guys see my signature slide there?
Yep.
Okay, so you may have to holler at me if you want to stop me. I don't think everybody will be hollering at once. Because I'm going to look at my screen. I do not have a written script. My script is on the screen. So as I've said, Linux, and for me, it's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. Sometimes it's pretty simple. Sometimes it can get more complex, and I have to do a lot of Googling and YouTubing and maybe ask for help. I try to always do it myself. I learn from my mistakes. I learned from a lot of failures. And I must have reformatted hard drives many, many hundreds of times. Being a hard drive guy and trying to learn Linux along the way. And as you see, I have said, this is sourdough Linux. Why am I saying it's sourdough Linux? Well, it is open source. So if I have a pile of sourdough and my friend was in Pennsylvania and he wanted me to try out his sourdough, he'd roll out some, put it on a little piece of wax paper and mail it to me, and I'd stuff it in my starter. And guess what? Now we've got my version of his for a while anyway, his sourdough. So it's open source, and you're going to see that a lot. Okay. This is not going to be in depth about how to do everything, but we'll cover Raspberry Pi along the way, of course. So why would you want to do this in the first place? Well, got an old machine over there, and the first time I ever did Linux on an old laptop or an old desktop, it was running like a 386 and maybe 512 megabyte of RAM. And guess what? Things like Knoppix and Puppy Linux did run on that and did work pretty well. And it still does today, although I don't run Puppy Linux anymore. Puppy Linux had a GUI and a command line as well. So as I graduated more into the Debian side of the world, it would give me much more flexibility with GUI interfaces and command line, CLI interfaces and that sort of thing. Now, I don't even remember why I put this number 2 on there, why you would want to run Linux on machines that Apple and Microsoft don't support, and I'm sure there are, and I don't remember what they are. But more importantly, number 3, you can save your old laptop, your old netbook. This is not Chromebook. Okay, this is not a Chromebook presentation or talk, but almost any old laptop or any old desktop, if you got it stacked in the corner, if you want to learn, and you're not going to learn it all in one day, 1 week. I learned every single day. I've been doing it real hard since COVID came around. So I have lots of laptops. I've been donated a lot of different laptops. I still have a lot of laptops, and some of them are running different flavors of Linux. And there are many different flavors and many different distros, and it is all free. Okay. And all of it is, I'm not running anything that's closed source, no funny business Sun or any of the things that are closed source or you have to pay for. I do everything that's free. And it keeps you from throwing that sucker in the trash or carrying it over to Best Buy and turning it in. They'll take them for free. And that's a good thing. And if the laptops don't have HDMI and at least a fairly decent processor in it, I will not take it. I will not mess with it. I don't need an old machine. And I'm trying to graduate more and more toward the higher speed, toward laptops that I could run maybe Windows 11 on, but most of the things I have won't run Windows 11. It is very friendly in most cases. There are some basic things you'll have to learn, and I'm going to try to teach you those on a high level sense here. So you can maybe copy those things down there on the bottom of the screen, the links. The history of Linux is a great wiki to go to, and you'll find that a lot of this that I'm saying is already there, and it gives you a lot more details about it. Okay, again, it's free. It is open source. If you disagree, yell out. If you don't like what I'm saying, yell out, please. I don't mind being wrong. So this, I know you can't read this, and I can barely read it because I borrowed most all of these slides from different sources. But I wanted you to get some idea of the evolution and the way that Linux got started. So if you come down this path over here on the left side, I guess it's your left, and you come on down through here, you can see the tux there, right? And then as you work your way on down, you'll find out that, oh, there's Android off to the left. It is running a version of Linux that is not called Linux, but it's all this is a Unix derivative in one way or another for the most part. And if you come on down, you'll find yourself at the Raspberry Pi. And there are a lot of names for Raspberry Pi Linux operating systems. Started out with Jesse, Wheezy, Buster. Now it's Bullseye. Those are the generational names, and those have evolved. You got a question? Those have evolved from 32-bit and Raspberry Pis 2s all the way up to Raspberry Pi 4s, and I am running the 64-bit version of Bullseye right now. So you see, these are different paths that Linux has taken. I believe they would call this mixed, and this is the paid for support versions of Unix, Linux, and so forth. Over here on the right, you'll find the CPM, its evolution, and going, of course, into all the Microsoft pieces down the way. It is open source, and there are tons of distros. So I've already covered most of this of why we want to do this, but one thing I wanted to tell you on this screen is once you go and decide on that you're going to download a free Linux distro ISO file from, and I don't always go to Distro Watch, but I go there once in a while and look and see what's the newest version, and it'll give you a ton of old versions. Some are 32-bit, newer ones are 64-bit. And so you can pick and choose and look at screenshots and kind of and do some Googling and decide, well, I like that looks of that. I want to run that one. But if you want to pick one that has some form of long-term support, LTS support, it could be Mint, it could be, my favorite, and you're going to see, is Peppermint, and there are many other flavors, Ubuntu and so forth. So you might want to pick a LTS version. The support engineers, software guys would support it for 1 or 2 or 3 or maybe 4 years before they roll up to the next higher level version. And of course, you're going to see a little bit more as time goes along. More and more Windows is supporting the Linux in various different ways and forms. They got a Windows system for Linux, WSL. They've got the PowerShell, which lets you run Linux command line, CLI commands, all within Windows 10, Windows 11, so forth. And all that gets pretty complicated for the very first beginners, guys. I did this several weeks ago in preparation. I'm going to do another one of these for another club out of town. But at the time, there were over 600 versions of distros, not versions. These are 600 different individual versions. I think the first one was called Slackware. And so there are many, many different flavors. Okay, now we're going to drive over into the Pi side of the world a little bit. And there are a number of different Pi distributions that are free, that are open source, and you're able to go and download. Now, there's an exception to that free. If you're running a Rig Pi, I bought one of the original Rig Pis from MFJ. I still have it over here. It's a Pi 3. Doesn't have Bluetooth, but it has Cat5 and does have 802.11 2.4 gig Wi-Fi on it. But if you want to buy that as a complete package, I think you'll see in a few slides that it's about $340, $50. But you can buy the image, and the image is about $29. All right, the next one. One of my favorites is Build-A-Pi. Those are, it's a standard Pi, standard images that are free, that you can download for free. You can get it off of GitHub, and there's probably multiple places, but GitHub's a great place to go. Jason, KM4ACK, does a lot of Patreon things relative to Build-A-Pi, and he supports that maybe and with his team. And you can burn that image with a program called Balena Etcher. There's also another one now, been around a little while, it's called Pi Imager. That is free. The SD formatter program you'd use to format a micro SD card is free. And then there's an older Windows program called WinImage 32. I believe I have that correctly. And but honestly, Balena Etcher and Pi Imager are the best that's out there. Another Pi image that's available and for free is called HamPi. And you're going to see why that I've listed these in a little bit, as well as DigiPi. Now, DigiPi is not free. I think for as little as $1, you can download his image. So anyway, those are some of the some of the images available that will run on the Pi. Of course, if you want to just load a bare bones Raspbian Bullseye or Wheezy or Jessie, and then you can load native apps from like FLDigi, you can do those all individually on your own with no problem. I say no problem, most of the time there aren't any problem. And you can grab those apps for free. And a private program I like to use for free is called Synoptics. And Synoptics is one of the very first things that I ever install on any Raspberry Pi, because now I can start Synoptics. I can go and do a search. I could search for FLDigi or Chirp. And I could say, I want to install that, and install it. And now then it would come up as a native app running under, and it's been ported into the Raspbian version of Linux. And I would stay away from Windows Wine, Windows emulator, if you will, and Mono. They may work for certain things, but they're going to be complicated for you to get things to work. Like I have tried for a long time to make WinLink work under Wine. It kind of works, but not very well. Okay, so there's a new generation of app for WinLink under Raspberry Pi and under Linux, and it's called PAT. It doesn't look exactly like the standard RMS Express, but it does work, and it runs RDOP and all those the different modes that we run under WinLink. And in most cases, all of these apps that you see on these images on the screen have a ton of SDR, software-defined radio apps, already installed. If not, then you can install them on your own through Synoptic or some other way that Linux gives you to install apps. My favorite, my absolute bottom line favorite, if my mother was still alive in East Texas and she wanted to surf the internet and print and do email, this is what I would give her, because Linux is pretty stable. It runs good. It's quick and easy for the most part. It's pretty easy to learn, but it gives you a Ubuntu kind of a look. Although this desktop is running under XFCE as opposed to a Debian kind of a desktop like Mate, Ubuntu, and LXDE, Linux Lite. There are whole tons of those desktops. You can Google search desktops for Linux, and you can just go crazy looking at all these different pretty picture versions. I've gathered on this screen, when you see this come up, on the bottom left corner, it would have like a start button, and it expands all of these groups. And within those groups are different things like LibreOffice, Writer, PowerPoint, so forth. Free. You don't have to install it. It does not have any ham apps installed, but you can install Synoptics or use another method and install your various different ham apps. Now, the good news is not only is it free and open source, and it runs, they have an older 32-bit version. I've been running it since back at version 7. It's now 8, 9, and 10. And they're trying to release version 11 64-bit, but the main developer guy died, and so the team has tried to pick that up and trying to manage all of the copyrights and IP, intellectual property things. And so they're trying to get ready to release a version 11, but it's still at version 10. You won't see a lot of difference between version 9 and 10 and maybe even 11, but there will be some new nice enhancements and things. So you can run this. You can run it under VirtualBox. Hello, Mr. David. You can dual boot it. I do not like dual boot. If I want to play around with something, I would run it under VirtualBox. There are other ways that I'm not going to talk about because I don't do those. But dual boot, I don't have to reboot my PC, come back up and decide to go into Linux. I want to stay all within one environment and do everything I can, whether it be VirtualBox or PowerShell or Windows System Linux. I want to do it without having to reboot all the time. So it is very user-friendly. If you burn it on a CD, you can burn it onto a flash drive, but it does not have persistence. Persistence means that if you booted it from a flash drive, for instance, and you went off and you installed your ham radio programs and you rebooted, those programs are gone. You would have to reinstall them again and so forth. However, it does have live boot capability. Now, what that means is you boot from the flash, you boot from the CD, a DVD, either a 32-bit version and hopefully one day a 64-bit version. And then once you've got it up and installed on the PC, you can decide whether you want to really, when you have it up and active on the PC, you can decide at that point whether you want to install it. It has an installed hard drive, and then you just follow that through. And the next time that you boot up, it will have persistence, and you can keep your apps whenever you install them. Any question? Okay, there's another flavor, two flavors out there that I use a little, and one of them is called Andy, and it's not KE5KOF, it's KB5NFT, and it does have a ton of ham radio apps already installed, and you're going to see that in a minute. And it is free, of course, and it's not bad. I do run it off and on. You can run it on the Pi. Wait a minute, I'm not sure I can run it on Pi, but I know I can. I know I can run it on the laptops. Okay. There's another one here called Skywave Linux, and it is pretty not difficult, but a little more difficult, and you're going to see on the screen because it comes up without a lot of GUI on it, and you got to learn maybe some short keystrokes or shortcuts to get it to come up. But it's got a lot of SDR and chirp and WSJTX and you name it, JS8 call and so forth in it, just like these other ones do as well, including Build-A-Pi, DigiPi, and Andes and so forth. There are a few that I like, but I don't have a lot of working experience with it. Down in the middle of the screen called MX Linux. I'd like to play with it more, but I just don't have time right now. And then there's another one, which I don't know anything about, called Antix Linux, but those have persistence. And of course, Puppy Linux does, but it's not Debian. And there's a reason that I like. When you go to install these packages, you use a package manager, and that package manager for Debian is apt-get or APD. APT. If you're going to use Puppy Linux, you have to use theirs, and I don't remember what the name of that is, just like an Arch Linux. I don't remember what that package manager is. It's just a little more complicated, and I can learn it, but I just don't care to learn it. Okay, so I've already talked a little bit about some of these. already talked about some of the tools. Just think of Linux as a toolbox, and you got a lot of tools in there. Millennium Etcher, PuTTY is a way to SSH into it. There's Raspberry Pi Imager, SD card, and Imager. WinSCP is an Explorer view tool that lets you, like Windows Explorer, where you can split, it will do split screen. So on the left, you will have your folders from your local drive, and then on the right will have your Pi, if that's the case, or a laptop and so forth. Very nice to learn how to do that with, and it's free. If you want to do remote desktop stuff, which I do a lot with VNC, it's not in this picture, but I do it sometimes with the AnyDesk, No Machine, TeamViewer, and then a couple of IP scanners, because you're going to need to know the IP address of a Pi or a laptop. And I like Advanced IP Scanner. Let me see. You may need to reformat a card. I would bet me at least a couple of cards. I wouldn't buy anything less than a 32 gig class 10 card if you're going to run a micro SD card. They aren't quite as reliable as a flash drive or as a USB external SSD drive, of course, and not near as fast either. So you're going to need that formatter every once in a while. You're going to have to format a card, blow it away, re-image it, plug it back in, and start over. Okay. And by the way, I don't have on here, but most of these have once you're up and booted up in a Pi, there's a SDR copy app, and you can copy from the native one that you have running over to a blank one. And so you make a backup, but that does take a good while to do that. We call it burning an image, okay? Again, the apt-get is something you're going to need to know, or in most of these nowadays, they have it set so you can run app as opposed to apt-get, a lot less keystrokes involved. And I've forgotten the word I was going to use, but anyway, it's a shortened version of apt-get. And then you can upgrade, and it's a great idea to do app updates, and it will tell you how many packages need to be updated. And then you can do an app upgrade or the dist upgrade. I do them both. You'll need to know how to change directories. You'll need to know how to go in and run the sudo super user command. And of course, that WinSCP, PuTTY. Now, if you want to run Windows System Linux and PowerShell, that's way more than I'm talking about here, but you can surely do it. And I've been doing it and trying to learn it. I mean, I know how to do most of the things. Okay, David, here you go. So I do like VirtualBox. VirtualBox version, this is a little bit older. I think there's up to like 6.1 or 2 or something like that. And VirtualBox 6 point whatever lets you do an ISO image install in the 64-bit. I've always had trouble with doing 64-bit stuff in VirtualBox until they upgraded. I believe it was probably in 6.0. But anyway, so it's free and it's open source, and runs on all kinds of platforms. Run it on the Pi even occasionally, but I run it on desktops. I run it on laptop. Now over here on the right is I have a new Windows 11 laptop, and I was running FLDigi, 2 instances on that Windows 11 laptop. This is VirtualBox running on the left. This is the native, this is VirtualBox with FLDigi running on the left. This is the native Windows FLDigi program that runs. I'm running those side by side, change the audio out and audio in on both of these, and do back to back, I call it. I've got another slide down at the end, and you can do that yourself. And so what are you going to accomplish by this? You're going to accomplish, number one, how to install VirtualBox. You're going to learn how to install a version of Linux, preferably a Debian version. And you're going to learn how to install, if you're not using Andes or Skywave or one of those, you're going to learn how to install FLDigi or any other ham program. And then, of course, you will do the same thing on the Windows. So now you can teach yourself at your desktop without having another person. You do not have to have a ham license. You're not doing RF. You're just doing local acoustical FLDigi. And it works. And it works great. Not all modes work. Modes like PSK 31, so forth, MT63 works great. And you can decode it from one side. You can send from the left and decode it and watch it on the right, and vice versa.
Hey, Dale.
Yes, sir.
Just one quick shout out for VirtualBox. So what VirtualBox is a desktop hypervisor or a desktop emulator. It lets you run another operating system sort of in a window on top of your existing laptop or desktop. It is free to download, free to use for personal use. It is maintained by my friends and my open source team that I work for with Oracle. Primary engineering is done out of Germany and Russia. We've got some of the brightest engineers on the planet. VirtualBox in the last 6 months is the #1 downloaded product from Oracle. It now is out downloading Java. It's extremely popular. Right now for Macs, it only runs on Intel-based Macs, but as Carol Burnett would say, stay tuned for a couple of months. So for those of you that have got the M1, I'll have some good news.
Yeah.
Back to you, Dale.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. I didn't want to read all those words, and you said much better than what I could read, that's for sure. Okay, here we go. Here's Build-A-Pi. This is an image. And as you probably can see, it's a little fuzzy, but when you start Build-A-Pi and you boot up into it the first time, you will start to get these selections. Now, I have overlaid those selections starting out. These are two different like groups, if you will. So you start out and you decide what amps you want to load in the ham radio world. Okay. It's not command line, it's check a box and click the install button, wherever that comes across. Now, the more that you check, the longer it takes to do an install, a complete install, because it goes out and pulls a script and it goes and grabs from GitHub or SourceForge or wherever, pulls that app down or some website, and then it installs it. So the more boxes you check, the more it takes. And I don't think you can read all this on the screen, and it's not showing everything, of course, but the first one over here on the right is the PAT menu. That's the WinLink control that you can do. Doesn't cost a penny. None of this costs a penny. If you want to do WSJTX, there it is, JS8 call, all of those are free and they do not cost anything. So this is Build-A-Pi. You do not have to contribute to his Patreon to do that. Okay, this is Andy's version of Linux, the KB5NFT. And once you click on these groups, like this group here on the left, Andy's Ham Radio Linux, then you'll get these subgroups over here. And within these subgroups, you get the other actual native programs that are installed already. Now you'll have to configure all these, of course, once you start them up. But this is an example of Andy's Linux. And it does have all kinds of satellite stuff and SDR stuff in there as well as the standard looking Raspbian Debian Linux for accessories, internet, your office stuff, whether it's LibreOffice or OpenOffice. Those are available and they're free. And it runs on a PC or a laptop. And it runs pretty dang good on an old laptop. I would say that you could boot most of these on an old laptop with 1 or 2 gig of RAM and just a medium processor. You can boot it in about a minute, something like that. Skywave Linux is a little more complicated, but it does have all of these apps that are already pre-installed. And but the guy, if you go and look at his video, he's going to tell you right away, if you don't like doing shortcuts, then go do somewhere else. Do something else. Don't do Skywave Linux. Now, Skywave Linux used to not have a live install where you could boot from a DVD or a flash and then install it on the hard drive. I'm pretty sure now it does. So there's a lot of, and it's clean desktop. This main screen does not show up. It just shows up with this blank night sky screen. That's it. You have to know a little bit to be able to get it to go. Here's another one, HamPi. HamPi is also free. And it has the standard old Debian look and so forth, the standard Raspbian look with the standard groups and things. And you can see again here, it's got antenna analyzers, DRADs, the FLDG suite, you name it, a whole tons and tons of things, as well as a nice version of HamClock. Now, HamClock, if you want to go buy Geocron, about $4,000 running 4K monitors, go for it. But you can do this one for free. It'll do RSS calls. It'll pull, it does the weather, the propagation maps, the gray lines. It's not bad. So it's a nice one and it's free and it runs on a Pi. DigiPi is not quite as, well, at least when I did the slide, it's not quite as GUI friendly. It's a little more basic, kind of a DOS version, if you will, of the GUIs. But and if you're just going to run one app like PAT or WSHEX, it's not a bad solution. And hopefully it's evolved and you do have to pay at least $1 to go get it. It would not be my choice. If you want to spend out some bucks, go get you a RigPi, which is now, they graduated it up to a Pi 4B. The advantage of this is that it has a audio board in it and a keyer board in it. And it's stacked up in a nice case. And but it has the ability to do more remote based things. But you get tangled up. As a beginner, I wouldn't even try this. I would try it in your shack, sitting next to your other HF radios and so forth, because it'll take you a while. It's got a mumble for the audio piece that helps transfer the audio, and then you got to go run mumble on a client somewhere to be able to come across the wide web. You can get tangled up into that pretty easily. I've done it local. I've not done it across the internet. I didn't talk about that on these slides, but I like to run a program. I don't have any slides on it, called RCFORB. RCFORB is free, runs under Windows. It has a client and it has a server. You can run the server on a laptop talking to your $4,000 HF radio, if that's what you want to hook it to, or you can connect it to a Kenwood D700 with a DB9 serial port, and you can set that up and run remote base, simplex, 146, 54, 52, so forth, on your home base server running RCFORB server. And then you can go away and access it via client from New Mexico. Or you can run the server and the client as you're setting it up at the same time. And the big advantage of that is you can make it private as a club. Cowtown's doing it. A lot of, if you go out there, you can download the client for free. You don't have to download the server. Go get the client, log in, and you'll see that there are a lot of systems out there running TS2000s, 7300s, whatever, or remote base. And I talk occasionally from my client, but no, this is not Linux, through to Tucson or Phoenix on Simplex, talking to guys that are driving down the road on Simplex. Could be on a HT, you never know. Okay, I'm getting close to the end here. So for my scouting operations sometimes, and I've done this for JOTA, where I would run 2 laptops. The laptops could be a combination of Windows on one and Linux on the other, or a Pi if that's what you wanted to do. And I crisscross the speakers. I like to do it with speakers with volume control, so I can do this back to back and teach myself or somebody else, or train a scout. Then he trains another scout, and they both sit there, and then they keep swapping out scouts. And so they not only get to experience ham radio in a non-RF environment, but also learning how that the software like FLDG works. Does work, and I've done it. And I've done it down in the bottom right, and it's not bad. It's acoustical. You got to tweak a little bit, but not bad. I've also done it at the Indian reservation last summer with the Indian kids, where I have a drum that I bought. It's a little for CW. It's a little hard to do dits and dials with a drum, but I know how to do it, and it can be done, and it's not difficult. Okay, my newest love, which is layered on top of whether it be Linux, Raspberry Pi, Windows, is Node-RED. Node-RED is not pure Linux. It is a flow-based programming language, if you will, that allows me to program, and I'm learning every day. I might want to control my Flex, which I don't have. I might want to do it remotely with Node-RED, and it's free. And so it's an interesting concept of, it was invented, written by IBM in about 2013. Now then, Apache has a version that's similar, but it's called Apache KAFKA, which is very similar to this. And again, you can control watt meters, HF radios, your yard sprinkler systems, your Raspberry Pi, your Adrenos, put a sensor in your mailbox, and you know when the postman has dropped your mail. That's Node-RED, and it works. Does take a little bit in the Windows shell, PowerShell, to make it work, but it's not hard. Okay, these are just some of the others, and I'm about there. I've already covered most of all of this. Why would you want to learn, and get my mouse over here. Why would you want to run Echolink and SVX Link and so forth? You can run it on a Pi. You can run it on a desktop. Again, it's a low level, in some cases, Linux things that you need to do. There's the ham clock. You can run FlightAware. You got to load a Pi from an image. It is running Linux. I don't think it's running Debian, but it does run some flavor of Linux. Node-RED, I've got it running right here beside me. You can run Home Assistant from Google on a Pi. I guess you can run it on a desktop or laptop, but I haven't done that. There's that Kafka from Apache. Volter Cloud Server. If you want to run a cloud server, I have my DV switch running in a cloud server under Volter, and it's running DV switch, and I can talk from anywhere across my cloud server node for DMR, D-Star, Piece 25, M17, and so forth. But it is running Linux, and I don't mess around with it. You can run, of course, flavors of the IDE if you're going to compile and run MicroPython or Python code and so forth. But and you can do it on a Windows machine, of course. And of course, portable VirtualBox. Haven't done that yet. Started to play with it and then gave up today. This is some I don't use, but there's some other versions out there. Sandbox for Windows. Goodness. There's a whole ton of things you can do, but you still got to have some sort of a basic Linux background. If you want to run BlueStack, which is an emulator for Amulard on Android on a PC running some kind of a Linux app, you can do that with BlueStack, and I've done that and it works. There are other ones here, but again, my favorite is Peppermint for the person that's just getting started. That's it. I've got other presentations that I've done or doing. I got one there called Hotspots versus DV Hotspot, my various different flavors of Philmont reviews. Myself and two other guys, we are doing a week class at Philmont Training Center this summer, and we are in a hurry to get all of those. We have formal approval. We're on the schedule. We're building our 4.5-day class schedules. We're going to be doing fox hunting. We're basically training the trainer how to teach radio merit match and how to become a ham. So any questions, raise your hand. I'm about to run out of talk time here. If you're interested, let me know. Don't throw the old laptop away. I want you to do it yourself. I will remote base into you, remote desktop into you. I want you to learn how to do it. I don't want to do it and hand it back to you, but if we could.
I got a question, Dale.
Yes, sir.
It's been a while, but I kind of resurrected an old notebook computer using Mint. Did you mention Mint? Is that?
I did not mention it heavily, but yes, Mint is out there, and it's matter of fact, my Volta Cloud server is running under Mint 18 or 19 or something. But Mint's fine.
It's still alive and kicking, huh?
Yeah, just do the updates. And so if you don't like it, and one thing I didn't mention here, and one of the real good reasons for learning how to do at least a little bit of this on a Pi or a laptop. Let's say you've got an old Windows machine that won't boot anymore, and you've given up, you're going to put it on the curb, you're going to take a sledgehammer to the hard drive. Don't do it. Take the hard drive out, get you a SATA interface, plug it in the USB on a Pi or on a laptop, and now go recover all those pictures and documents over to your Pi or your laptop, or use another external hard drive, and then go put the sledgehammer in it.
Well, that's exactly what it was. It was a laptop or tablet that couldn't use it on anything else, but it ran nice on it. So.
Maybe there are others out there that like a Chromebook. I don't like Chromebook for ham. That is not a secret. I do not like Chromebooks for ham.
Hey, Dale,
Chromebooks aren't good for a whole lot of things.
Hey, Dale, you did spawn a project in my head. I've got a couple of extra Pis around here that are just kicking around, not doing anything. Here's a 0 that I've added the Ethernet hat to. And you just mentioned ham clock. While I'd love to have a Geochron, I don't have a Geochron in my budget, but I do have spare monitors lying around. So guess what, buddy? I'm going to build me a ham clock. I love that. That's awesome.
You can run it on the, I don't know if that's a Pi 4, the newest one, Pi 0.
It might not be enough. I've got a couple of 3s lying around. I'll try.
But it'll run on a Pi 0. It'll run on even the old, not the old original one, but the second generation, and now the newer one, and with a hat. Yeah, it'll run.
I'm gonna try it.
Well, wait a minute. If it runs on a Pi 0, why won't it run on a Pi 1 at the same CPU and same speed?
I'm not sure that it won't run. I just don't have any of those, and I don't know
Oh,
that it
okay.
does. Okay.
Yeah, Pi 0 and Pi 1 are the same CPU and same speed.
Yeah. I want a Pi 0 2W, which is 64-bit, but you know, it's just not something on my high radar screen.
Well, don't get excited because pies are as scarce as hen's teeth right now. They're on allocation. And I was in Micro Center last week and it looked like Armageddon. There's nothing between the chip shortage and everybody buying them up. They're on allocation, and it's not supposed to get better till later this year. So.
I have the 4 Pi 4s that are 4 gigabytes. 3 of them are in a pretty good case with a fan, but I've got a Pi 400 right here. Don't let anybody tell you you cannot run Windows 10 or Windows 11 on a Pi 4 in 64-bit. I'm doing it. It's not Linux, and it does work, and it works pretty darn good. I'm running different apps on it. But I would not substitute that for my real Windows PC. Not at all.
So the point of this, ham friends, is for the adventuresome, there are options. You know, Windows 10 and Windows 11 is not free. It's not terribly expensive, but it's not free. And you know, we can have a separate conversation about what is open source, you know, that kind of thing. We can talk about that another time to clarify everything.
Well, I hope I hadn't bored you guys. I can't see the pictures of very many people. I don't know, probably others left.
I think you can unshare.
Yeah, I guess I better do that. Okay.
Well, I tell you what, Linux is a good way to recycle old, 1.5, 2 gigahertz PCs, because, if you got a gig of memory, Linux will boot and run.
It runs, like I say, it'll boot in about a minute. I mean, really. It's sluggish in some areas, but depending if you're going to run Node-RED on a Pi, which is great for a single flow application, don't try to get complicated with it. It's just sluggish. But anyway, my choice is peppermint.
Peppermint's a very pretty different.
Yeah, and basically most of the different versions of Linux, for the most part, run the same kernel. It's just how they spread their files around and how they manage packages.
If you want an orange blossom look in one version of Linux, and then you want a banana look over here, and you want a mint look, all those desktops are all available. Google it.
The way I explain it is with the following analogy. For the years, the best-selling vehicle in the United States is the Ford F-150 by a long shot. It's a pickup truck. There's also Dodge Rams and, well, Ram and Chevys, but they're all pickup trucks. They all pick up your stuff. They'll carry them down the road. They all are trucks, but each one's a little different. Maybe you like the Ram interior better. Maybe some of you like, you want the Hemi. Okay. But they're all trucks and they're all get a basic job done. Well, that's a Linux distro. They're just different spins on a particular thing. They have a different look and feel. They might smell a little different. They might feel a little different, but they're all just operating systems that allow you to do something.
I didn't mention PyStar. PyStar is Linux under the hood, but it has a GUI. You got different flavors of that for your DMR, D-Star, P25s, and all that kind of stuff. Many flavors of that, but it's all Linux down deep. Okay. And it runs on a Pi. And and here's a Pi 4 right here that runs PyStar, and this one is running, I don't remember if it's running, I got it, each one of them set for D-Star, DMR, and so forth. But it's Linux under the hood, and you're going to need to know a little bit of that. But there's a lot of directions on how to do it.
And just an FYI, everybody goes on about Raspberry Pi and stuff like that. There are a lot of Pi alternatives out there that still run Linux, still run the same Linux. They're basically Raspberry Pis, but with different chipsets and things like that, but they're all Linux. You can install the apps on them and the apps will still run the same thing. I mean,
Yeah.
one of my favorites I like to run, if I can get it pulled out of here and get it brought over here. That's a Banana Pi.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
The biggest difference is this has a SATA port on it, a real SATA port,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
a Banana Pi. Everything that runs on a Raspberry Pi will run on here.
A little more
And
expensive.
this is the same price. It's $35.
If you're going to run a Pi Zero, I would recommend, and I agree with you, Alan, no problem. This is a Pi Zero, not 2W, but a Pi Zero W. And I have a hat board on it. And the hat board has got Cat5 and it wraps down USB. And so it's got 3 USB on it with a wrap down. And that way, all you have to do is power this puppy, plug it in Cat5, and you got the mini HDMI on it. And it's a lot easier, in my opinion, to do things when you got these extra ports. You don't have to have all these crazy octopus cables hanging out there. And so,
All right.
Daryl looks like he's asleep.
He's I think Daryl was actually last night. The reason why the room is there in party mode is he's got a couple of rascal raccoons that he's considering evicting with extreme prejudice from his area. So,
Yeah, I evicted one last night.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Dave, thank you very much. Dave Lane, he kicked me in gear a little bit with MMDVM. And I took that off of a Pi and I put it in a BlueStack box and it runs Android and BlueDV. That's a whole nother level of subjects not covered here. But anyway.
So Linus Torvalds was a Finnish, no, I guess Finland, I don't know, over there. He was over there as a young college kid and was mad because
You turn on the kitchen light.
at the time he couldn't
See if it-
afford to buy a license.
It brightens up my screen here.
He couldn't afford to buy the Unix.
That's the one that,
Took this whole thing off of reverse engineering Unix.
Yeah.
And he eventually won a Nobel Prize for all those efforts. I mean, he changed things forever, and he changed Microsoft. The reason why Microsoft Windows pricing is now roughly $100 is because Linux is out there.
Yes.
It's the world's most popular operating system now by a long shot. When
Especially if you're
use-
talking servers.
Yeah, if you're using Amazon or you're using Netflix, that's all running on Linux in the cloud.
I have to tell you, and I don't think I'm telling you a lie. I don't think I've ever been infected with any kind of virus on any of my Linux machines. Never, ever have I ever done that.
For desktops, not so much. Now, of course, the servers are now being probed a lot because it's running in
Yeah,
the cloud.
right.
So unfortunately, it's not the good old days. But yeah, most of so long as you patch early and patch often, you're in a lot better shape these days.